on for the rest of the session. And yeah, looking forward to the discussion. Florian, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you very much, Tuba. Can you hear me and can you see me?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you also for the kind introduction and the opportunity to moderate this session. So we are talking about game-changing innovation in electric vehicles. My name is Florian Baumann, and I'm working as a CTO at Dell Technologies, specialized in automotive and AI use cases. So I'm talking a lot to our global automotive customers. This could be the automotive manufacturer or the automotive supplier. And today we are talking about an extremely expanded ecosystem by also considering EVs, so electric vehicles. We are talking about new software-based architectures. The vehicle will become a platform similar to your Android smartphone or your iPhone. And we are talking about broadly deployed connectivity. So the vehicle is connected to everything, to the smart city itself, to your home, to different vehicles on the street, and also the ability to identify and monetize data. So how will these profit pools start to change if we are getting EVs on the streets? And this will, of course, impact all participants and also the driver itself and also the people and also the automotive manufacturers and suppliers. So these business pools will start to transition from profit pools that were made based on the car sale, on the hardware itself, to functionalities as a service. You can open your Android or iPhone and simply download an application. And this will be possible very soon in these EVs also. And it's also quite obvious that the market in 5 years, or maybe already in 2 to 3 years, will look quite different than today's automotive market. So we will have EVs on the streets. We will have mobility providers on the street. We will have last mile delivery EVs on the street. So you can order your pizza very soon, and this pizza is delivered by a small robot. And that's so fascinating. And I'm keen to listen to your thoughts around how this EV industry will change. So what do you think? What kind of innovation do we see very soon on the streets, maybe in a horizon of 2 to 3 years? So open your microphone and speak out loud.
I would like to also take a moment, Adam. I was just about to introduce Adam Bergman, Managing Director of the EcoTech Capital. Great to have you here, Adam. We also have Moshiol Beaton, CEO of Adionics, and we also have with us Jonathan Salomon, an investor with Alianza Ventures. So we are very happy to have you here. And of course, all of the other people that are also part of this conversation, so don't be shy. Florian is going to have some open conversation for all of you to jump in and provide your thoughts and intake. So Adam, I'm sorry, you were about to speak.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I think it's really interesting. And Florian's coming from it a little different perspective than I am, because he's coming, it sounds like, from an EV as a mobility use. And I was actually thinking about it from the conversation we just had as the utilities of the future, and where EVs come in from that perspective, from both a use of energy and energy storage capability, and what role they're going to have. Because I think that's one of the major changes we're seeing from the utility. This isn't the utility most of us grew up with, because the utility of the future has a very different role and a need. And I'll just say a quick story, because it's one of my favorites. I had a conversation, it was probably 10 to 15 years ago now, with PG&E about electric vehicles, when we were just really starting out. And I said to them, you must be really excited with electrification. It's the largest new revenue source you've had since air conditioning. And they responded, we're scared, with an expletive after it. And I said, I don't understand why. And they said, well, what you need to understand is that 20% penetration in the PG&E territory is 75% penetration of EVs in San Francisco, Palo Alto, Marin, Berkeley, and it's going to take down our grid. And that's one of the things I think is really interesting from the utility perspective of where does EVs play. There's clearly a huge opportunity from a decarbonization play, but we have a utility system which hasn't had infrastructure upgrades in generations and needs them, and we're not ready for all of it. So I actually think that the utility side to me is really interesting, because I think and I've had other clients dealing with FedEx is putting these in place, and they said if you bring us 10 EVs, we can recharge them, but if you bring 11 EVs, we have to put in all new infrastructure. So I think there's a huge infrastructure play around the electrification side. The stuff Florian's talking about to me is fascinating, and I've had these conversations with people of what's the car of the future look like, because it doesn't look like what we have today, because it's not going to have a steering wheel, and it's going to have different purposes depending on if you're taking it for commuting, if you're just taking it for a short trip. Can you get your nails done in the car while you're going home? Can you work out and exercise? Because you don't need to have a car designed the way we use it today when you're not driving it. So I think the stuff Florian's talking about to me is fascinating. I think it's to me a little further off longer term. I think the actual energy side of it is one of these challenges that we're going to actually have to face very rapidly, and I'm not sure we're ready for.
Adam, have you seen the solution provided from Tesla that could add solar energy panels on the roof of your house? You can store the energy in a battery and then charge your vehicle during the night. I guess something like this is mandatory.
I think that's great. The problem is there's people like me who live in downtown San Francisco in condos who don't have that. We have no charging infrastructure in my building. My wife uses the car to take our kids to school, and there's not really charging infrastructure in San Francisco for fast charging today. So I think in a lot of places what you're articulating makes a lot of sense. I don't think it fits everywhere. And interestingly, the places where you're going to find a lot of the quickest adoption in the inner cities won't have that opportunity.
Agree. And my take is that we are moving the carbon emission topic from the vehicles into the utility industry, and we have to solve it there. And this is difficult.
It's a tremendous challenge, because you think about where we are in California, and even Texas is rising the amount of renewables, but you go to the Midwest and Ohio where it's still 50-60% coal. Is an electric vehicle that's running off of coal, where you have 20-30-40% loss of electricity through the whole distribution system, better than using gasoline? I don't know. I'm not sure it is. When we're a majority renewables, then it's a no-brainer. But until that point, you do have questions whether the carbon implications of using electric vehicles in some locations, if you're not using renewables, it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, agree. Jonathan, from Allianz Ventures, do you have a take on this?
Sure. So Allianz Ventures is the venture arm of Renault, Nissan, and Mitsubishi, so 3 car companies. One of the pillars that we look at and invest is essentially the electrification, anything from battery technology to new powertrains to infrastructure plays. I want to touch what Adam said. 2 points. One, I do think that, and I think I read a research about it, that today in the U.S. in all 50 states, including Ohio, it's already more beneficial from a carbon emission standpoint to own and operate it in an electric vehicle versus a gas-powered vehicle. So that's 1 point. The second one is about really what you mentioned before in the beginning, in the vehicle of the future, and I completely agree that this is something that is a bit far on into the future. And now we realize that the promises of autonomous vehicle did not come through in 2018 and did not come through in 2019 or in 2020, like many car companies and tech entrepreneurs thought it would be or envisioned it would be. Definitely, the electric vehicle is the main disruptor right now in the ecosystem and in the automotive and transportation play. And I think that we are bound to see a mix of electric vehicles and not so much much in the future. Also hydrogen powered vehicles, and each of them will be used in different scenarios and for different purposes. Definitely going through in a city, in an urban environment for a ride sharing or ride hailing standpoint makes more sense for an electric vehicle than any other type of fuels that we know of today. And one last point on the integrated or holistic matter that that Florian, you mentioned that Tesla is taking with the solar panels and the solar panels on the roof and the battery. It's a play that also touches the previous panel because it the utilities of the future, because what Tesla is trying to create is a decentralized grid. And that is already it's already in place in some places in the world where I think in Australia specifically, Tesla has some really good because it's spread out and it's not in an urban city with high rises. They have a better penetration in a certain region there.
Thank you, Jonathan.
We have some great questions in the chat box. I'm going to ask Amir Hirschfeld. You had a question about micromobility.
Well, basically, Florian, I wanted to understand your take on it. If you actually, when you're talking about the EV market, do you consider micromobility as part of the EV market to start with?
Yeah, I guess, Amir, you're talking about micromobility in terms of electric scooters and all these small devices that you could take to reach
Everything
your
less
destination?
Smaller than a two-seater. As far as
exactly. So to answer your question, I would say micromobility is definitely also part of this transformation that we are heading to. And Jonathan was talking about ride sharing and ride hailing. All these possibilities are part of the new mobility industry, and also electric scooters, for example, electric vehicles that you could share, that you could grab somewhere. All these solutions are part of the mobility industry and will strongly influence how we reach our destination very soon.
I was going to add, I think one of the things you see that's really interesting these days are places like in Scandinavia, where you can buy a ticket to commute that will put you on a train, that will give you a bike to use, if there's a vehicle to use. And I think you're going to see more of that technology in the future, which is a crossover of all these different commuting solutions that will include micromobility as one.
And have you seen, please go on. No, I wanted to add something to Jonathan or ask him a question. I was reading an interesting article a couple of days ago, and that OEMs are focused on the next generation of hybrid vehicles. And this will be a combination between electric vehicles and hydrogen-powered vehicles, because both technologies could fit some gaps. What do you think about this? Hydrogen and electric vehicles. Have you heard about this already?
Actually, I haven't, but I'm not in the product planning department. So
it was also for me the first time that I heard about this, but it was quite interesting because some countries like Germany, for example, they invested into the hydrogen energy, I don't know, since 20 years or something like this. And now EVs are coming into the game. And some people are also thinking that hydrogen vehicles will replace EVs very soon. Let's see, it's exciting.
Florian, can I say something about that?
Yes, please go on.
Sure. So first, any fuel cell or hydrogen-like vehicle will need battery to start the engine. So there will not be any hydrogen without battery. So you can call it all the hydrogen vehicles. They have some hybrid engine with them. So that's because, you know, the hydrogen is very monotonic. So you cannot restart and go to acceleration, etc. And for that, you need like batteries, a supercapacitor. So it will not be able to do it by itself.
Agree. So you're saying that the fuel cell vehicle is already an EV on its own somehow.
Correct.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
hybrid.
agree.
We have another question in the chat box from Todd. Todd, if you can ask your question and first of all, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi group. My name is Todd Monet. I'm with a company called Clean as New. We're a ESG technology trying to find our way in terms of helping the often beat up oil and gas industry. And as we talk about net zero, one of the commentators just made the comment about where the emissions were coming from. A lot of work has been done, and most of the regulations that have been in place, quite honestly, if you go look at the data where the emissions is coming from, it's no longer really the manufacturing plants, the refineries, the chemical plants. They've all been regulated for many, many years. They all have continuous improvement plans in place, and most of your large oil and gas companies, quite honestly, are judged not only by how reliable they are, which also impacts emissions, but their environmental programs. Okay, so a lot of the emissions today really comes from personal decisions and behaviors. So, you know, things like going to the dry cleaner, sitting in drive-throughs, it's all in the car space, or predominantly still in the car space. That's where the opportunity is. So I guess the question for the panelists is just how you're using kind of personal behaviors and influence to ultimately shift into the space that you're talking about now.
Is there anyone that wants to take this question?
I was gonna say, I think about it this way. There are a huge amount of emission changes that are gonna have to happen as people change their lives. That realistically, it's just looking at the group here. It's not the people on this call who are gonna be driving the change. It's probably our children and people younger than that. The reality is that there's a whole new generational change that's happening in how people are living their life and thinking about sustainability in a way that we probably don't think about continuously. But there's also another thing that's important, which is a lot of the technologies, and I've now been doing clean tech for 17 years. It comes down to economics, and we can talk about a lot of the things that were discussed before. And I know one of the panelists made a really good comment, which is this group on here might not describe the average person who's a utility customer, and I think that's a fair statement. An average utility customer wants to look at the economics. The average consumer is going to look at the economics. And realistically, what you found, and I saw this 17 years ago when they saw a poll of people, did you want solar versus coal? Everyone said yes. And then they said, would you pay 10% more? And that number dropped to under 10%. So I go back down to the reality of technology innovations happening at such a rapid rate that it's going to be driving change to make things economic. If it's not economic, you're going to find very big challenges in getting most of society to change the way they operate, to go to a new technology that's more expensive. That being said, I do believe that younger people are now prioritizing sustainability and climate change to a level where they are willing to spend more, but I don't think most of society is there, so it's still economics.
Just want to jump in here really quickly, and I know it's sort of it's sort of a cultural transition to go from a panel discussion to a roundtable. But I really want to emphasize that everyone who's on the Zoom call right now really should feel free to participate. You can text in your questions to the box, but really just feel free to unmute your mics and really jump into the conversation.
Can I just close on my comment? Adam, I really appreciate the way you position my question into your answer, because I know, like I said, Clean is New. We essentially clean equipment. So we bring heat exchangers, which are the client's equipment, back to life by making them 100% clean, like brand new. That's the name of our company. And every client that we have, they all have ESG mission statements. They're all bought in at the corporate level. They're all trying to make climate change be manageable and, our environment a better place. And yet the decisions that get made are all on cost. And so that's what we're finding is our biggest marketing challenge is everybody's aligned, but then the decision-making process is still about the mighty dollar. And are you $2 less than your competition?
Moshiel, for those.
Yeah, I'd like to go back a little bit to the beginning when we asked about the challenges and also like hydrogens and EVs. So already like big companies, Tesla, Volkswagen, and all the others bet on the batteries in this kind of competition in terms of investment and infrastructure. But there are two main challenges, as mentioned. And Adam said that the infrastructure is a big deal. During Thanksgiving, even in California with the best infrastructure, the line to charge the vehicle was like for a few hours. And even if you don't have like two kids at the back or a dog, it's unpleasant, believe me. And the second one is batteries. Batteries are still lagging behind. Of course, the advances in the modern technologies is thanks to the battery, but we're still not there. We need much, much better batteries. And the price of the batteries is what's going to drive this direction to full electrification. And also for renewable energy and for utilities. At the end, the bottleneck is how to store and how to regulate the grid. So batteries is the main, I would say, issue even before like moving to other stuff. And if we are taking like Tesla as example or other companies, what they did and relate also to this topic about software or AI around that is to build the vehicle around the battery itself. That's like the first thing that the paradigm shift that OEMs should take, and not to use the exist models and just to put the battery inside, is to build the vehicle around the battery. And on top of that, what we learned from other industries and from software industry, for instance, in software, they make huge progress by just using the codes that others have built and building another layer or a layer on top of it. And this is what we can do also with electric vehicles and in regards to batteries especially, is by taking existing battery chemistry or even like emerging one, and also the huge production facilities that build for them already. It's already built, similar to semiconductor industry that's still like using silicon, and then putting another layer of technology on top of them and taking them to the next generation. This is what will create a huge advantage, is to use the exist manufacturing capabilities. It's must, like we have like gigafactories, terafactories. Let's use them and try by innovation, not by copy paste what they did like in China, Korea. We'll never be able to compete, and we'll never be able to create this leapfrog. We need to focus in innovation and not to change it entirely, to have like small changes, but with huge impact.
Can I jump in a second? Because it's an interesting point, but I'm going to disagree a little with you, because I've watched well over a decade when we saw innovations happening in battery technology, and I will go back to even solar 5 years before that, when we were seeing the development of thin film technologies. One of the things that's really important, and it's not per se 100% on the EV, but on the battery and the storage side, is a concept called bankability, which is your ability to take that and deploy it and have someone be willing to finance it. And I can tell you from all my experience, the problem with new technology is it's really difficult to, one, scale it, and two, get it bankable. And at this point, and I had this conversation about 6 years ago with Bloomberg New Energy Finance about what technology was going to win in the battery or space. And they told me it was going to be lithium-ion batteries. And I said I disagreed because I thought utilities would end up using flow batteries or other technologies. And they said to me, lithium-ion batteries have gotten so cheap that it's easier just to use more as long as you have the space than try to use other technologies for duration. I think the reality is that while there are probably better chemistries that can be used, the lithium-ion battery industry has gotten so big and gotten to such a scale that to have someone else finance new technologies and then scale them up is not going to be likely. I'm not sure who's going to come with the capital.
I totally agree. This is actually what I said. Like, let's keep the improvement of lithium-ion batteries is not to try to replace and to find other technology. And yes, the price is going down, but let's on top of that to put another layer on with the existing manufacturing for lithium-ion batteries. And this is what we should learn. Also in the semiconductor industry, no one is replacing silicon. We know that there are better semiconductors than silicon, but all the fabs are built for silicon, and it's the same for lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries is here to stay, and also what's driving the huge, I would say, adoption of lithium-ion batteries is the fact that we can reduce the price dramatically. And this is not thanks to major innovation in the chemistry. It's more about like manufacturing, scaling up, automated processes, and this is what like Tesla did very well.
Yep. The problem is on all these hardware issues, the Chinese have pretty much won all of them, whether it's solar, whether it's LEDs, whether it's batteries, they've invested, and based on the companies I've dealt with, typically don't need to make a profit. So they're focused on scale and having jobs. They're not focused on economics, which makes competition incredibly challenging for non-Chinese companies.
I see that David has unmuted his mic. He was our keynote for the morning. I think he's being very polite, but I think David is going to chime in right now.
Well, I'm just going to offer up a couple of comments. I'm a climate optimist, and I think so. You know, the question about net zero and the tools we have at our disposal, it is going to be a combination of consumer behavior, regulatory and consistent regulatory leads, and it's going to be commercial innovation. We did some really interesting work with Deloitte. You can find it. It's called our Goal 13 Impact Program. And essentially it looked at the different stages that companies are at. And I think it's highly relevant to this discussion because, you know, the corporate sustainability and the regulatory environment has driven corporate behaviors for a while, but I see a huge sea shift in the industry. Companies like BP and Shell are completely repivoting their entire businesses towards thinking about electric mobility around becoming integrated energy companies rather than international oil companies. And I really think that transformation, bear in mind, you know, we're thinking about our plans for the coming decades as much as we are in the short term, but I think the ambition that's being set out in the short term is going to be transformative. I think the investments are going to be made, and the regulatory environment will support the innovation and the transformation that's needed.
Interesting. Thank you.
I wanted to add a comment on what Adam said about China and how they invested to gain this advantage. It's also important to note that the Chinese investment is also now if we're going to use the same technology and the same lithium-ion batteries that are used today, then we also have to we have to agree to the fact that we are changing reliance and I'm talking about the geopolitics here. We're changing reliance and dependency of the U.S. on oil, from oil manufacturers in like Saudi Arabia to China, who are today they process 95 or almost close to 100% of all raw materials that are are being mined all over the world, including in the US. So battery manufacturers in the US are shipping raw materials to China for processing and getting it back from China. So that's one point that the regulator would eventually have to address. And with regards to the current battery technology and moving to other chemistries, which I totally agree with both Adam and Moshiel, that it's not the right approach, and it's also not what OEMs or the entire industry is focused on or is interested in. I think that the current battery is very good for many or most use cases. Definitely, all the urban transportation that currently is using, some of the commute that we all do used to do before the pandemic on a daily basis. So it's important to note that we can already use current technologies and integrate them into our daily lives.
Thank you, Jonathan. I would be interested, I don't know if this is working through Zoom, and how many of you are having an EV personally? And there's a nice functionality, Ami and Jonathan, but there's a nice functionality in Zoom. If you click on the chat button, you can click on raise hand. Or yes or no.
I'd like to thank Florian for serving as our tech assistant for this conference.
So click on yes or no. Are you
Does a hybrid also count?
I guess we understood that hybrid, no, fuel cell EV is an EV vehicle, but hybrid gas car is not an EV. Or maybe it's an EV. Let's count it also.
And what about people that
we're trying
don't own a car?
Then you are.
So if you go on the bottom of your screen, you see there is an icon called reactions. If you click on that, you see there is a thumb up, right? Or
oh yeah,
if
perfect.
you click on the thumb up, that will give us a signal to see how many people. I see Amir has one, Jonathan has one, Svea has one.
Florian, if I could speak to your question right there about our plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, they definitely are. I think it's not a binary question, but it's really, much more of a spectrum. And I think that point gets at to as we evolve. Right now I have one hybrid and one electric. Having two electric cars reduces my resilience and my flexibility as an individual in my transportation. And I think we need to be accepting that there may be a goal of net zero or absolute zero at some point in the future, but we have to accept that all of us are going to make our own journey. And it's important for the auto manufacturers and for all of us to be able to be pushing that progress and at the same time tolerant of the time it takes to get there.
Thank you, Paul. Pretty much agree. Yeah, great comment. Thank you.
Can I say something, please?
Yes, please, Jacob.
Well,
if you can just introduce yourself, your name and the company.
Well, I've introduced myself in the chat, but also I can do it here.
Thank you.
My name is Jacob Edry. I'm the CEO and founder of a startup company in Israel. We are producing hydrogen. We have developed a technology to produce hydrogen that is 70% cheaper than the SMR, using SMR to produce hydrogen. Also, our technology is 100% green, which means no carbon emission or carbon dioxide emission. But I didn't want to. I want to say something about this green technologies and about this global warming idea and everything. I'm a biologist. As a biologist, I know that one of the main blocks of life on Earth is carbon dioxide. Without carbon dioxide, there are no plants, because plants use carbon dioxide in order to execute photosynthesis. So with no plants, you don't have fruits, you don't have wheat, you don't have cows, you don't have food. We need carbon dioxide. Actually, from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the Earth got greener There are more plants on this earth because of the emission of carbon dioxide. Another thing, there is no correlation whatsoever between carbon dioxide emission and global warming. Actually, the opposite is true, which means when there is a rise in the temperature, there is a rise in the carbon dioxide level, which will occur only 80 years after the rise in the temperature. The global warming, if there is a global warming, is because of the sun. It's because of the route of the Earth around the sun. And it's because also the changes in the magnetosphere. But none whatsoever, there is no correlation whatsoever between the rise of the carbon dioxide. And that's my 1 penny remark in this session.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Is there anybody that wants to comment on this?
Yeah, what's great about a roundtable is that we can piggyback and we can disagree. So everyone can also feel free to
Yes.
share ideas that are contrary.
Can I share something?
Please
Of
go
course,
on.
Ilana.
The Israelis here probably saw the news yesterday, and there was a fire. 2 homes got on fire because of a lithium battery of a bicycle got on fire. So I think there is a big issue with using large lithium batteries in cities, and we know that. We checked the fire code of, anyway, in the county of Los Angeles, and you can't have lithium batteries. I mean, you can under really major restrictions, inner cities. So what we offer, Nostromo developed energy storage battery that's based on water. It's not good for everyone, but it can help cities and decarbonizing the grid, and this way giving relief to the area, to the neighbors, to people, to actually the facilities that will hold, that can install it. Because what we do is we store energy in water during the day when solar is available, and discharge it towards the HVAC system from 4 p.m. when most of the stress on the grid appears, because all the homes, everybody gets home, turn on the ovens, their ACs, charging their cars. So this is a solution that can help the environment and can help the facilities that are actually using electricity or dirty electricity. That's really friendly, environmental friendly, because it can stay for 20 years, and lithium batteries you need to throw away after 5-8 years. And there is an issue with disposing it too. So I just wanted to put out there, this is new. We're going to be installing 3 systems in LA in the coming year. The Bird Foundation gave us the first grant for the first pilot here. So I'd like to, anyone who wants to reach out, we solve a lot of these in your ESG goals for anyone there.
I'm also going to use this opportunity as a shameless plug for Maya at the Bird Foundation.
Thank you.
Who is the person you want to talk to if you want free governmental money for your company. So go ahead and reach out to Maya.
Thank you. So I'm happy to see a few Bird grantees here, and Moshiel with Adionics just received our grant. I saw David Mayers with the Polaris. And who else? Unmute yourself.
Daniel Schwab from Brightmounts.
Perfect.
We're finishing off. Yeah.
So I just wanted to add the DOE, and I put it also in the chat, just announced yesterday, $4 million available for clean energy. Electric vehicles, of course, fall into that or into the regular Bird program. We have funding to give. Just reach out to me via email. I posted my email in the chat box. We are eager to talk to you if you have innovative technologies, and we can help with making introductions.
Maya, can you share when is the next deadline for applications?
Sure. So the Bird Energy call for proposals, the deadline for the executive summary is June 30th. It's just a short document, and we will be happy to guide you through the process. The regular Bird program, the deadline will be in September. So June and September.
Okay, so we still have time, a couple of months.
Just
a very good comment. The very good comment to Adam about bankability. There are some like very good foundation like Bird that can narrow the gaps for some companies. For instance, if for like private investors, it's too risky, or the technology needs some. There is amazing technology, but there is some gaps to support it. So Bird is another amazing vehicle for that. But other like vehicles that can support those type of technology. So if you have great technology in your end, so never give up.
Thank you, Moshiel. Daniel, you wanted to have a comment, please?
Well, firstly, I just want to, as a recipient of funding from Bird, I want to thank the Bird Foundation, and it's been a tremendous journey over the last 3 years. We've had a fantastic partnership with a company in Portland, Maine. And I see some people in the crowd that have been mentors to us. So we really appreciate it. It's been a fantastic experience with Bird. And you know, we're moving into more of the commercialization phase now. So we're very grateful for that. And also just to put a plug for, you know, there's a lot of discussion in the sector about hardware, but I think, you know, just to echo some of the words that Adam and David said earlier, is the importance for the industry to shift maybe some of the thinking into the digital space. And we're in the digital space, but digital meaning you know, platforms and data and ways of managing data to facilitate the scale up. There's a huge opportunity there, and for investors and for entrepreneurs, especially from Israel, because of the tremendous success that they've had in the past in other sectors in the digital software space. So if we can shift our focus from hardware, not to ignore hardware, but I think there is a need to think about how we can shift more effort and funding into the digital and software space. So thanks.
Can I add just on to Daniel's point? Because I think one of the things I find interesting is we saw 10, 15 years ago, the start of really the smart grid revolution. And what was interesting is it was really government led. It was part of the stimulus package to drive it because it wasn't fully necessary back then. But what you've seen over the past decade, because of all the changes and how much renewables and what everyone's favorite duck curve is in the US, down in California, the need to be able to actually manage the electrical grid more efficiently is essential. And more importantly, as I kind of mentioned before, this move to electrification is just going to actually drive the necessity even faster and the need to be much larger. So I agree with you, Dan. I think the software side often gets overlooked, and the only way it's going to get managed, all these changes, both with to move to intermittent renewables and to electric vehicles, is with a much more efficient software layer that gets integrated onto the grid.
I saw David Mayers raise his hand with a comment or a question.
Yes, thank you. And second and third, the compliments to Bird and what that does for companies, but specifically building on what Scott, Adam, and Paul were saying. I think two macro trends that will affect the next few years. Number one, Jigar Shah being appointed to lead the loan program at DOE, and his whole focus on deployment-led innovation. So when you talk about all of the soft costs and these obstacles, those really tend to work out or get better with scale. And so that will produce opportunities to everyone who has technology or processes or business models that address scaling as opposed to new hardware, new widgets, et cetera. And the second, really hearing about the Texas consumers and the question of, well, how can people respond to prices? They're not all online all the time as some of us might picture. And so one of the things that we've been working on here in California are models like transactive energy, but everything using automation. So whether it's home automation, industrial, agricultural, where those decisions with the market become automated, because exactly as Scott was saying, people will not be looking at their phone all day to see when to run a load of laundry and a refrigerator. But to the extent that those things can be automated and incentivized for wide swaths of the population and businesses, then the grid, or the demand side of the grid, will be a lot more flexible. That's it.
Thank you, David. I return the mic to Florian.
Yes, so maybe let's, so we have being conscious of time, around about 10 minutes remaining. Maybe let's talk a bit about innovations in the electric vehicles era. So we've talked a lot about fuel cells and the electrification itself. So what makes you excited about the new mobility industry? And this includes also the micromobility industry, as we've talked about. Maybe open your microphone. What makes you excited about this?
Happy to chime in here. I did a lot of research over the last couple of years about micromobility and specifically autonomous micromobility. And I think you started talking earlier about, those different types of aspects of autonomous and electric and connected and shared, ACES or CASE, whatever your acronym may be. And I think one of the things, maybe also to Adam's point about how the Chinese module manufacturers, and I've worked for 2 Asian module manufacturers, while many people were very excited about new chemistries and technologies in the solar space, they were able to increase volumes and bring down price. And I think a lot of investors became aware of the concept of fundamentals. And I think when you can buy a vehicle that can take you upwards of 30 miles an hour for a few $100s, you start to understand the fundamental capability of micromobility in terms of being able to transport people. And if you take that asset and you make it a shared asset, instead of being used 1% of the time like many of our cars, it can be used perhaps 50% of the time. And you start thinking about how we can reduce our cost of transportation from perhaps a 50-cent plus per mile down to something that's a tenth of that or less. So I think micromobility is going to be a huge opportunity for the future. I'm very bullish on it.
Yeah, me also. I'm really looking forward on any business trip to a larger city. I'm based in Germany. I'm at the Lake of Constance in a small village. But on any business trip to a larger city, I really love to take e-scooters and electric vehicles and to get an Uber and to Lyft taxi. That's so cool. It makes me really excited about this new mobility industry. Just some comments to add. I guess it was Jonathan. Was there any question?
Yeah, I would like to add just a remark about fuel cells and about cars. Well, there are actually two or three nowadays. There are three problems. One problem is the energy density of hydrogen is very low, and therefore, in order to put a tank full of hydrogen in a car, you need such a large fuel tank that you will not be able to put it in a car because there will be not enough hydrogen in order to drive it. Second, that's the dangerous part about hydrogen. Hydrogen is an explosive gas. You drive a car, usually, well, there are car accidents, and if
Jacob,
you
a battery can also explode, as we've understood from Ilana was talking about this. This could also happen.
Yes, but not like hydrogen. Hydrogen, it's enough to have a very small spark to ignite the whole tank, and hydrogen is explosive. It's not like a battery that well, okay, a battery can explode also, but the chances for a battery to explode are much lower than the explosion of hydrogen. See what happened in Apollo 13. That's exactly what happened. And the third part of this is the cost of the production. The production cost of hydrogen is too high in order to use it for fuel cells today. So these are the three problems that we have now in order to put fuel cells in cars and drive cars, with using hydrogen. And that's it.
Thank you,
I
Jacob.
think I can-
Ilana,
Yeah,
please
may
go
I
on.
suggest
I
to,
think I can challenge that.
yeah, I wanted to point out that Gil Shavit from Gensel is here.
Sorry,
He's the
Jacob.
expert.
I want to challenge that because I know that you are making also hydrogen, but hydrogen in a Mirai car from Toyota has a 5 kilogram of H2 for 500 kilometers, and it's already running. The only problem is that it's hard to make those gasoline station. And I don't know if it was spoken today, but yesterday we've mentioned that there is a green ammonia effort to use ammonia as a hydrogen holder. You can hold 176 H2 kilograms of H2 in 1,000 kilograms of ammonia, which is about one meter by 1 meter. It's 1 cubic meter. And I know ammonia is toxic, but ammonia is very well maintained, covered with water. So you see a lot of car manufacturer, mainly trucks and buses, that cannot run on batteries because too heavy to have so many batteries for them. They're talking about running on ammonia. And I want to surprise you that in very large vehicles or transportation like ships, running diesel by the mixture of raw ammonia mixed with hydrogen to have the same motors running on that fuel with 0 CO2. So don't bury the hydrogen so fast.
Thank you, Jill. Let's also listen to Ilana.
Let me clarify. I didn't want to take the time here, but what we actually do, since the AC system is taking like 70%, it's like, I call it the most drinker of any of the electricity in a commercial building. We take it off the grid from 4 to 5 or from 4 to like 10 p.m. We basically release like 30% of the usage. So this is allow for more space on the grid for EV charging in malls, in hotels, and give relief for the homes around, because like cities like LA, the commercial and the residential is mixed. So if you have a hotel in Beverly Hills, like the Hilton Beverly Hills Hotel, around there are many homes. So once we take it off the grid, it gives relief for 400 or 500 homes in the area. So this is our idea, is to take most of the commercial buildings off the grid between 4 and 10 p.m. or through the night, and then everyone can charge their EVs without any problems. And since we charge the electricity when the electricity is cheap, so the building owner end up saving can save $100,000 a year. And this is clean, it's on water, and does not harm the environment in 5, 8, or 10 years, because there is no degradation, and it's safe.
Thank you. We're coming to a close pretty shortly. I want to pass it off to Florian again for some final remarks, and if there's anything last that you want to add to kind of close it out.
Thank you very much, Tuba. So first of all, a big thanks to the audience. I was really enjoying this discussion, and in fact, I was really learning some stuff around fuel cells and EVs and battery. I was posting a link into the chat. There was a public announcement from Volkswagen, who invested into a technology provided by a company out of California. It's called QuantumScape, and they are focused on replacing the lithium in these batteries with a new technology. It could be interesting, and check it out. So no, I'm really looking forward for to enter the EV industry and the EV area. I do not own an EV yet, maybe in a couple of years. I'm really excited about this transformation. So thank you very much to everybody. Reach out if you have any questions. Connect with me at LinkedIn. And that's it from my side.
Beautiful, wonderful. Well, this was a really vibrant roundtable. Thank you so much, Florian. You really directed it very well, and we got to have ample participation, which is really great. So thank you, everyone. This closes our second day of the 3-day series, the U.S.-Israel Disruptive Clean Energy Technology Conference. So tomorrow, we're going to have a theme on renewables. So the theme is more renewables, less carbon. We're going to have keynote speaker, who's the Daniel Blumenthal, who's the energy attaché to Israel from the Department of Energy. And we will have a really interesting panel discussion with Shell Ventures, with Engie, with Delek, Modi'in, Doral, and Tygo. So just lots of really interesting companies that'll be very vibrant. And we'll have another roundtable like what Florian did, which is more interactive afterwards, which is on technological integration and investment. So talking about cross-border collaboration. Also just want to note, we're going to have a couple of pop-ins of folks just to kind of quickly speak. We'll have these California State Senate Majority Leader Bob Hertzberg pop in and speak just for a few seconds, and then also State Senator Henry Stern as well. So we had our US Congressman on Monday. We'll have some state leadership tomorrow. And yeah, just want to thank once again my partner, California Israel Chamber of Commerce, Sharon, and then also so much partnership and support from the Bird Foundation, and really, of course, our sponsors, Pillsbury Law Firm and Dell, and Light of Health. Dell double dipped today. We had 2 speakers from Dell. So Dell is on my mind. Wonderful. And if anyone wants introductions or wants to continue the conversation online, please feel free to reach out to me, Sharon. Love to kind of continue this. So thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Tzvia. One last note, today's session were recorded. The same was with yesterday. If you missed yesterday, if you cannot join us tomorrow, please log into our YouTube channel. I put it at the link in the chat box. You can see all the conversations throughout this conference in our YouTube channel. That's it for now. It was a great discussions. We are looking forward to see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
Bye.